So let's talk about the Iran nuclear crisis. We're going to break down how a tiny 2-week deadline is creating what might be the world's most dangerous flashpoint. Let's get right into it.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. What if everything, all the talks, all the threats, all the diplomacy, boiled down to a single, frantic 14-day countdown? What do? This isn't some movie script. It's the razor's edge we could all find ourselves on. You see, that 2 weeks isn't just a random number. It's the exact point where technology, military planning, and pure human psychology all smash into each other. We're going to show you how this one short time frame has become the tripwire that could change everything.
14 days. That's it. In the slow-moving world of international relations, that's basically the blink of an eye. But when you're talking about a nuclear standoff, well, it's an eternity. This specific number is the trigger for all the high-stakes chess moves we're about to explore.
Okay, so first up, we need to get our heads around the science that's driving this whole deadline. This is what we'll call the technical clock. It's the physics and the engineering that set the pace for this crisis.
The whole thing really hinges on this one idea: breakout time. Now, this is crucial. It's not the time it takes to build a finished bomb. It's just the time it takes to cook up enough fuel for one bomb. And that estimated time for Iran is shrinking, fast, down to just a couple of weeks.
Now, you gotta understand, there's more than one clock here. Getting the fuel, that's the breakout, is quick. Actually building the bomb and getting it on a missile takes way longer, months, maybe more. But here's the kicker. You don't actually need a finished bomb to flip the world on its head. The second Iran has the fuel, they've crossed the line. The strategic game in the Middle East is changed forever.
So what changed? The technology. Iran's old centrifuges, the IR-1s, they were pretty slow. Breakout time was measured in months. But these new IR-6 centrifuges, whoa, they are up to 10 times faster. And just like that, the timeline went from months to days. And that speed, that incredible acceleration, is what's creating all of this urgency.
And you see where this is going, right? As that technical clock speeds up, it starts another clock ticking, the military one. Because as Iran's program gets faster and better protected, the window to actually stop it with force gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
And it's not like these facilities are just sitting out in the open. We're talking about places like Fordo, which are literally buried deep inside a mountain. They're hardened, they're built to survive an attack. To even have a prayer, you'd need massive bunker buster bombs. And even those super powerful weapons have their limits.
This all leads to a really terrifying question from military planners in places like the US and Israel. I mean, what do you do when the very thing you might need to destroy becomes, well, indestructible?
It forces them into a brutal use-it-or-lose-it dilemma. That 2-week breakout window suddenly looks like the absolute last chance to launch a strike that might actually work. You wait any longer, and that military option could be off the table for good.
And think about this. You can't just keep your entire military on high alert forever. Sure, you can move your aircraft carriers into position, that's phase one. But holding them at peak readiness, that's unbelievably expensive, it's politically draining, and it creates massive psychological pressure. It's like a wave that you can only hold at its crest for a very short time. If you don't act then, you have to pull back.
Okay, so we've got the tech clock and the military clock. But all of this brings us to the deepest and maybe most unpredictable layer of all, the psychological clock. Because this is where the crisis stops being about physics and becomes a high-stakes game of nerve. It's a classic game of chicken. You've got two cars hurtling towards each other at top speed. If one side swerves, they lose face, they lose leverage. If neither side swerves, you get a catastrophic crash. All the military posturing, all the tough talk, it's all about trying to convince the other driver, I am absolutely not going to swerve.
And in a game like this, it's not actually about who has the bigger army or the more advanced jets. The real question is about who is more determined, who is more afraid of backing down than they are of an actual war.
Now, if you're sitting in Tehran, you're looking at recent history, and you see a pretty clear pattern. You see Saddam in Iraq and Gaddafi in Libya. They both gave up their nuclear programs, and their regimes were overthrown. Then you look at North Korea. They got the bomb, and their regime is still there. For them, this isn't about aggression. It's about survival. It's the ultimate insurance policy.
But here's the thing. This isn't a simple two-player game. Not at all. We have to zoom out and look at the geopolitical clock. Because there are other massive powers on this chessboard, and they all have their own agendas. We're talking about a 5-player chess match here. The US wants to stop a nuclear Iran, period. Iran wants what it sees as a survival guarantee. For Israel, this is a straight-up existential threat. And then you've got Russia and China, who are playing a whole different game, trying to chip away at Western influence and protect their own massive energy and trade interests.
And here's where it gets really messy. A lot of these goals are in direct conflict. The US is focused on the nuclear issue, while China is worried about oil prices going through the roof. Israel sees a threat that must be eliminated, while Russia sees an opportunity to increase its own power. It creates this incredibly fragile, unpredictable situation where one move can upset the whole board.
So, what happens when all of these different clocks, the technical, the military, the psychological, the geopolitical, what happens when they all start ticking towards zero at the very same time? Well, that's when you hit the tipping point.
This right here is the whole crisis in a nutshell. The uranium clock is about to strike breakout. The military clock's window is slamming shut. Economic sanctions are at max pressure, just as political pressure to do something is rising. And all this is happening while the inspection clock goes dark, because nobody really knows what's going on inside. All these deadlines are converging at once.
And this, right here, is the single most important thing to understand. The real tipping point isn't about when a bomb is built. It's not a technical moment. It's a psychological one. It's the moment a leader looks at the board and decides that waiting one more day is more dangerous than taking action right now.
In this crisis, every single player feels like the clock is ticking against them. Time itself has become the one thing they all have in common. It's become the enemy.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question. That tipping point, that moment when waiting is scarier than acting, given everything we've just walked through, has that moment already arrived?